The story begins with our main character, a tired high school student who definitely falls into the unlucky loser category. He walks home late in the evening after another exhausting day that probably went about as well as you'd expect. On his way, a friendly kitten approaches him, looking for some attention. This reminds him of when he was little and found a kitten near his house, though a cat-obsessed neighbor eventually adopted it. These days, Shintaro Tokimitsu lives by himself in a small apartment since starting high school. While he's slowly getting used to the whole independent living thing, today's tiredness hits him like a truck. He collapses onto his bed and immediately falls asleep, not even bothering to change clothes. During the night, while Shintaro snores away, a single white feather drifts through his window and lands somewhere in his messy apartment. The next morning, his phone's alarm jolts him awake with all the grace of a fire drill. He stumbles to get some milk, still half asleep, when he notices his window is wide open. As he moves closer to investigate, he discovers something that definitely wasn't in his How to Adult manual, a girl lying unconscious on his balcony floor. The shock makes him drop his milk, which splashes everywhere, including all over the mysterious girl. Way to make a first impression, Shintaro. He panics as his mind races with confused thoughts. He feels relieved it's not a dead body, but questions why he's allowing someone who sneaked onto his balcony to stay. His mind cycles through possibilities, wondering if she's a burglar, a runaway, or perhaps a cosplayer. He quickly helps her up and offers her a towel to dry off, then hands her some clothes to cover herself while his brain tries to process what's happening. As she returns, he apologizes, but she quickly apologizes back for using his balcony without asking. The girl then introduces herself as Tawa, and they exchange names like normal people do, except nothing about this situation is normal. Tawa thanks him and compliments his kind heart, which makes Shintaro start having those typical teenage boy thoughts about how pretty she is. They end up talking for quite a while about families, homes, and other everyday topics. When Shintaro finally asks the obvious question about why she was sleeping on his balcony, Tawa can only say that she wants to show her gratitude to him. She insists he should ask her for anything he wants, but Shintaro, being the simple guy he is, can't think of anything. This makes Tawa feel sad, so she decides to be useful by cooking something. The only problem is that Shintaro's kitchen has about as many ingredients as a desert has water. Instead, she starts cleaning up his apartment, which clearly needed some divine intervention anyway. Suddenly, she rushes to the balcony and gets scratched by a cat while trying to preach. Shintaro bandages her hand, and she thanks him, complimenting his pure aura. He assumes she's a runaway and tells her she should go back home. When he asks where she lives, Tawa gives him the most casual answer ever, heaven. She explains this like she's talking about the weather, which makes Shintaro realize he might be dealing with someone who's a bit too creative with reality. Tawa then drops the bombshell that she's actually an angel sent to Earth by God to study humans for all of angel kind. Shintaro's confusion reaches new levels, especially when Tawa asks if she can stay at his place for a while. Perfect timing too, because his work alarm goes off, reminding him he has exactly 30 minutes to get ready. They both head out, with Shintaro telling her to stop this whole runaway act and go home. He's still not buying the angel story, probably because it sounds like something out of a weird dream. At work, Shintaro has about as much fun as you'd expect from someone whose morning started with finding a girl on his balcony. He ends up leaving early, pleading with his boss and heading home, while wondering if the strange girl actually left or not. His question gets answered pretty quickly when he spots Tawa with some random man who's clearly trying to convince her to go to a hotel with him. Shintaro immediately grabs her hand and pulls her away from the situation, because even confused teenage boys know danger when they see it. While walking and trying to explain to Tawa why following strange men is a terrible idea, Shintaro suddenly passes out. Apparently, the day's stress finally caught up with him. When he wakes up, he's back in his own apartment with Tawa sitting beside him like a concerned nurse. She's made him some porridge using whatever she could find, some leftover bread and milk. She even feeds him, which surprises Shintaro since it's been forever since anyone cooked for him or took care of him like this. After eating and feeling better, Shintaro explains to Tawa about the dangers of trusting strangers, especially the kind who invite girls to hotels. She looks sad because she admits she has nowhere else to go. This melts Shintaro's heart enough that he tells her she can stay in his apartment. Tawa gets so excited about this news that she practically glows with happiness. But then Shintaro realizes something puzzling. He's not exactly lightweight, so how did she manage to carry him all the way home? Tawa casually mentions that she just flew there, no big deal. When Shintaro looks confused, she decides to end all the mystery by showing him her wings, proving once and for all that she really is an angel. The next morning, Shintaro wakes up hoping everything was just a weird dream. His hope crashes and burns when he finds Tawa sleeping right next to him, looking as peaceful as a little kid. She wakes up and cheerfully says good morning, which prompts Shintaro to ask the very reasonable question of why she's in his bed. Tawa gives him the most logical answer in the world: there's only one bed in the apartment. Well, she's not wrong about that. After their morning encounter, they head out to shop for breakfast. While walking, Shintaro gets lost in his thoughts about his living situation. He reflects on how his parents' busy work lives forced him to move into his own apartment when he started high school. Tawa suddenly approaches him, practically bouncing with excitement over a free plate she earned by collecting enough stickers from buying steamed buns. Her joy makes her wings pop out right there in the convenience store. Shintaro immediately panics and tells her to hide them. She quickly apologizes and explains that her wings appear whenever she gets really excited. She mentions learning about human life from a book called The Good Kid's Guide to Life on Earth. Curious about her background, Shintaro asks what angels actually do for work. Tawa explains that angels deliver God's messages to people and make sure souls don't get lost traveling between heaven and earth. Most importantly, she says angels are meant to bring happiness to humans. When Shintaro asks what exactly makes humans happy, Tawa admits she has no idea, which is apparently why God sent her to Earth in the first place. While enjoying her steamed bun, Tawa tells Shintaro she would love to eat this every single day. This makes Shintaro worry about money since his parents' allowance barely covers his own expenses, let alone feeding 2 people. He decides they need to buy actual groceries and daily supplies since she arrived with absolutely nothing. While he explains how to get to the mall, her wings suddenly reappear. He warns her to be careful, imagining the chaos if people discovered an angel, envisioning scenarios involving TV and NASA. Then he urgently tells her to promise never to go with strangers or reveal her wings. Seeing him tense, she asks if he still has a fever, but her closeness flusters him. He walks ahead, saying it's just fatigue. They head to the shopping mall, which Tawa mistakes for some kind of palace. Shintaro warns her to stay close, but she can't help getting distracted by everything she finds cute. She spots a mug with a cat design that reminds her of the cat on the balcony. Just when Shintaro thinks she wants to buy it, she loses interest because he already has mugs at home. This makes him wonder if she actually wanted it after all. A little girl notices Tawa and loudly tells her mother that there's a princess nearby. Other shoppers start commenting on how her dress looks like something a wealthy princess would wear. Embarrassed by the attention, Shintaro quickly takes her to buy some normal clothes. He checks the price tags and realizes he can afford them thanks to saving his allowance, though it will use up most of his money. When Tawa worries about making him spend too much, Shintaro brushes off her concerns and tells her to pick out casual clothes and pajamas. She asks what style he prefers, but he insists his opinion doesn't matter. These are her clothes, and she should choose whatever makes her happy. A store attendant approaches them to show off the new seasonal collection. Tawa finds several outfits she loves and feels genuinely happy about her choices. While she's in the changing room, the attendant comments to Shintaro about how pretty his girlfriend is. He awkwardly corrects her that they're not dating. Inside the changing room, Tawa thinks about Shintaro's incredible kindness toward a complete stranger like herself. She wonders what she could possibly do to repay him. When she comes out, she makes a dramatic public vow to bring happiness to his life, which looks suspiciously like a marriage proposal to everyone watching. On their way home, she asks how she looks in her new outfit. Shintaro tells her she looks great, while secretly thinking she looks absolutely gorgeous. Hearing his compliment makes her beam with happiness. He suggests they grab groceries before heading back, but he notices boys hitting on her, so he steps in and reminds her that strangers can be dangerous. Then he wonders aloud if he might seem dangerous too, and how he could prove he's not. Tawa-chan gets upset, insisting he's not malicious at all. Once home, Shintaro complains about how heavy all their shopping bags are. She easily picks them up to put the cold items in the fridge. When he mentions she must be tired from all the walking in crowds, she says she had a wonderful time because he was with her. While unpacking groceries, Tawa discovers that Shintaro secretly bought the cat mug she had been staring at earlier. She's thrilled to find it. Meanwhile, Shintaro admits to himself that he also enjoyed their day together. That night, they end up sharing the same bed again. Shintaro lies there embarrassed, telling himself he really needs to buy another bed soon, though apparently not soon enough to do anything about it tonight. After their shopping adventure, Tawa decides to spoil Shintaro with a homemade meal. While she busily prepares the meal, Shintaro sits there thinking he's living like a king compared to his usual diet of convenience store snacks and instant noodles. Tawa playfully offers to feed him like a baby, which makes Shintaro turn red and quickly refuse the embarrassing offer. As they start eating, Shintaro discovers that Tawa's cooking is absolutely amazing, especially her potato dish that makes his taste buds dance with joy. Tawa beams with happiness seeing Shintaro enjoy every bite. Shintaro can't believe this angel can cook so many different dishes perfectly. Tawa proudly explains she learned everything from a book called The Good Kid's Guide to Life on Earth, which sounds both adorable and slightly ridiculous. The delicious homemade meal makes Shintaro realize how terrible his daily diet of convenience store food and stale bread really was. He remembers Tawa's sweet words about wanting to bring happiness into his life, and he starts thinking she's not just cute and an amazing cook, but a perfect angel. A tiny voice in his head wonders if he really deserves such a wonderful life. The next morning at 8 a.m., Shintaro notices the time on TV and remembers he has school. When Tawa asks if he's a student, Shintaro reminds her he already told her he's a first-year high school student. Tawa immediately starts cleaning up and announces she'll get ready to leave with him, but Shintaro panics and tells her she can't come because people would definitely freak out seeing an actual angel. Tawa insists she needs to stay with him to bring happiness, but Shintaro firmly refuses. She then suggests he could just skip school for the day, which sounds tempting to Shintaro, but he explains that as a student, studying is his duty. Tawa finally understands and agrees to stay home. Shintaro leaves some money for her, asks her to relax and watch TV, and promises to return by evening. As Shintaro walks to school, he feels a bit guilty about leaving Tawa alone, but he's also feeling sick from eating too much of her delicious food. Suddenly, his energetic friend Shuchi appears and slaps his back as a greeting, making Shintaro warn him that he might throw up. Another friend, Satsumi, arrives and scolds Shuchi for his rough morning greetings. Satsumi notices that Shintaro looks terrible and asks if he's okay. Shuchi jokingly asks if it's his fault and comments that Shintaro looks like he's seen a ghost. He explains he's just tired from not getting enough sleep. When Shuchi asks about weekend work, Shintaro agrees, and Satsumi suggests he should skip school. Shintaro politely refuses, saying he'll be fine. Satsumi worries about him since he lives alone, which makes Shuchi tease her about being extra nice to him. Satsumi explains that's just what friends do, and Shuchi suggests she should be even nicer since Shintaro still comes to school on time. Shintaro laughs and says they act like a funny married couple, which makes Satsumi angry and she tells him never to say that again. Shuchi thinks her reaction is too harsh, making Shintaro laugh even more. Back at the apartment, Tawa cleans and does laundry, then sits on her bed thinking about Shintaro. She feels happy remembering how much he enjoyed her cooking and wishes he would come home soon. When she realizes it's lunchtime, she starts worrying about what Shintaro will eat since he won't be back until evening. She imagines him being hungry and unhappy, which makes her concerned. At school, Shuchi loudly announces it's lunchtime. Satsumi notices Shintaro only brought vegetables and juice for lunch, and when he says he'll buy bread if he gets hungry, she asks if he ever cooks for himself. She worries about his nutrition, but Shintaro assures her he manages fine. When Satsumi says bread alone won't give proper nutrition, Shuchi jokingly suggests eating tons of bread, but she explains that's not how nutrition works. Shintaro doesn't want to mention Tawa's cooking, so he lies about occasionally getting staff meals. Satsumi offers to make lunch for him too since she makes her own lunch and worries about his diet as a friend. When Shuchi asks her to make lunch for him as well, she refuses, saying making 3 lunches would be too much work. Suddenly, Shintaro spots Tawa-chan outside the window and panics, trying to hide her from his friends. When Satsumi asks what's wrong, he says it's nothing and secretly tells Tawa to go to the roof where he'll meet her. She agrees, and Shintaro rushes off saying he has work to do. Shuchi wonders if Shintaro is meeting girls, which makes Satsumi angry. Some students nearby see Tawa flying, but one dismisses it as stress hallucinations from staying up all night studying. Shintaro runs up the stairs as fast as possible and scolds Tawa for coming to school when he told her not to, especially with her wings clearly visible. He worries about what would happen if people discovered angels exist, and it became news. Tawa apologizes for causing trouble and explains she was worried he might be hungry, so she brought him lunch. When she says she should leave, Shintaro stops her and apologizes for shouting when she was just being kind. He suggests they eat together, and as they do, he compliments her cooking again. Tawa thanks him for the praise, and when Shintaro recognizes the dish from the night before, she explains she remembered because his compliments made her happy and she wants to learn more about his preferences. Shintaro feels lucky to have Tawa, though he asks her not to cook too much food. In the classroom, when the teacher asks for help carrying materials, Satsumi volunteers. While carrying things, she beams with happiness as she offered to make lunch for Shintaro. He sneaks Tawa-chan out the rear gate and tells her to go straight home and not talk to strangers, while she asks him to come home soon. Just then Satsumi spots them and realizes Shintaro really was meeting a girl, but she gets completely shocked when the girl spreads her wings and flies away. That night, Shintaro realizes he forgot to buy a mattress again and will have to sleep on the floor, which surprises Tawa when she discovers his sleeping situation. The scene transitions to Satsumi soaking in a hot bath, but her mind refuses to calm down. She keeps thinking about what happened earlier and kicks herself for not asking him about that girl when she had the chance. She convinces herself that it was a hallucination. She recalls a memory when she was just a kid who got lost in another town. A boy named Shintaro had helped her find her way home, and he became her very first crush. But that was 9 long years ago, and honestly, she had even forgotten his name until recently. Fast forward to result day at school. Shuchi jumps around excitedly because he got accepted into the school. Satsumi realizes with a mix of dread and excitement that she'll have to spend 3 more years at the same school as Shuchi. Meanwhile, he walks up to another boy and asks if he passed too, suggesting they become friends. The boy's name card slips from his hands and falls to the ground. Satsumi wonders what's gotten into Shuchi as she bends down to pick up the paper. When she reads the name on it, her heart nearly stops. It says Shintaro. She can't help but think that fate has brought them back together after all these years. Back in the present, still in her bath, Satsumi admits to herself that she hasn't mentioned their childhood meeting to Shintaro. She's worried that bringing up something from 9 years ago would make her sound like a total stalker, and besides, that small incident probably meant nothing to him anyway. Her mom notices that she's been talking to herself in the bathroom for way too long and asks if everything is okay. Satsumi quickly says she's fine and makes up her mind to ask Shintaro about that girl tomorrow. She also decides to offer to make lunch for him. The next morning at Shintaro's apartment, as he's about to leave for school, Tawa stops him and asks if he doesn't want lunch today. He tells her he'd love to take it, but he's worried about how he'll explain it at school. Tawa starts wondering if he's beginning to hate her, especially since he slept on the floor instead of sharing the bed with her last night. Shintaro explains that they can't keep sharing the same bed anymore. This makes Tawa tear up, and she says she doesn't want him to go to school either. Hearing this, Shintaro immediately agrees to take the lunch she made. She asks him to come home soon for dinner, but he apologizes and tells her he has work and won't be back until after 9. When Tawa suggests going with him, he quickly says no. He softens his tone and tells her how lucky he feels to have someone making lunch and dinner for him at home. This makes Tawa happy to see him smile, and Shintaro finally leaves for school. As he walks away, he feels a bit guilty for avoiding deeper conversations with Tawa. From the balcony, she waves at him, and seeing her there makes him feel grateful to have her waiting at home. At school, Shuchi invites Shintaro to have lunch together. Both Shuchi and Satsumi are surprised when they see that Shintaro already has a lunchbox in his hands. Thinking quickly, Shintaro makes up a story about saving an old lady on the street who rewarded him with the lunchbox. When he opens it and finds a heart-shaped omelette inside, he starts eating really fast, hoping Satsumi and Shuchi won't notice the romantic touch. Satsumi immediately thinks a girl must have made it for him since his mom is out of town. When Shuchi asks if he can have the omelette if Satsumi doesn't want it, she gets really angry. Later, while walking home, Shintaro feels exhausted. He wonders why he always comes up with such weak excuses and worries about what story he'll have to tell tomorrow. He starts feeling like a complete loser and thinks it's fine as long as no one finds out that Tawa is an angel. But then he realizes the real problem is that he doesn't want anyone to know he lives with a girl. Suddenly, a fortune teller appears and tells him he has a cloud of girl trouble hanging over his head. When Shintaro asks what she means, she introduces herself as a friendly neighborhood fortune teller and warns him that he's entered a phase of intense girl trouble. She offers to sell him 3 powerful charms for 30,000 yen to fix his problem. Shintaro quickly declines and runs away, thinking it's obviously a scam. but as he runs, he can't help wondering if she might be right about the girl trouble. Then again, he realizes Tawa isn't really a problem for him at all. At work, his boss asks how he's feeling and Shintaro says he's good now, apologizing for leaving early on Saturday. His boss tells him not to worry about it and mentions that the girl who started working 2 weeks ago will be working shifts with him. He reminds Shintaro to behave well toward her. Curious about his new coworker, Shintaro decides to say hi later. But when he opens the changing room door, he finds a girl changing clothes. She gets mad and slaps him right across the face. His coworker notices the slap mark and asks what happened, but Shintaro doesn't say anything. The girl then comes over and gives Shintaro a cold cloth. He wonders if she means for him to use it on his face. He apologizes for not knowing anyone was in there, and she says it's okay since it's her fault for not locking the door. Shintaro introduces himself, and she tells him her name is Noru Izumi. Finding the name unusual, Shintaro jokingly asks if she was born on Christmas. She confirms that she was and asks if that's a problem. Noru Izumi then tells him she doesn't get bothered by his comment and asks him to forget what happened in the changing room, saying to never speak of it again before walking away. Shintaro notices she doesn't let him get a word in, but he finds this good since he was worried she might complain about him. He feels relieved thinking he can relax now. While serving customers, Shintaro can't stop thinking about seeing her in that dress in the changing room. He tells himself to stop thinking about it since she said it doesn't bother her. He starts feeling bad for Tawa and remembers he still hasn't figured out how to make excuses about her lunches at school. Their boss tells them they can go home and mentions there are new trial desserts in the break room fridge that they can try. Noru Izumi tells Shintaro she can leave if he doesn't want to eat with her, but he refuses to let her go. She praises him for doing his job perfectly, and he thanks her for the compliment. When they find parfaits in the fridge, Shintaro comments that the cherry parfaits look delicious. He notices Noru getting embarrassed when she hears the word cherry and asks if something is bothering her. She tells him to forget about it, and he agrees, saying he doesn't remember anything either. But then Shintaro realizes it's not okay for a girl to be seen changing, and he feels bad for being so insensitive. He notices the room is too cold and asks where the remote is. When he sees her standing still and shaking, he asks if she's okay. As he tries to touch her, she asks him not to and reveals that she's a snow lady phantom, a kind of snow spirit. Inside the cafe, Shintaro starts thinking that if angels are real, then maybe Yuki Onna would be real too. Noru suddenly realizes something and quickly tells him she was just joking around. She reminds him that the cooling system is broken, trying to cover up what just happened. Shintaro notices something strange. The more panicked Izumi gets, the stronger the snowstorm becomes around them. When he figures this out, he asks her to calm down and tells her he's perfectly fine with supernatural things. Another waitress walks by and wonders what's wrong with the cooling system, but their boss checks it and says he can't find any problems with it. Shintaro thinks they should probably leave the cafe, so they both head out together. Meanwhile, back at the apartment, Tawa is having a blast playing video games. She finds Human World games super entertaining and fun. But when she looks at the clock, she realizes Shintaro is running late since he said he'd be back after 9 o'clock. At the same time, Shintaro and Noru are sitting together on a bench in a nearby park. Shintaro suddenly realizes they go to the same school, which surprises him quite a bit. Noru asks him if he really believed her story about being a snow spirit. Shintaro agrees and says it's simply because she told him so. In his thoughts, Shintaro admits he has already seen angels before and figured there might be devils too, but he wasn't expecting to meet a Yuki Onna. Noru looks worried and asks Shintaro to keep what she's about to tell them a complete secret. She reveals that her family has a long history of having snow spirits in their bloodline, a type of mythical snow woman. She's not sure if this ability is genetic or not. She explains that both her mother and grandmother were Yuki Onna too. Noru tells him that when they feel strong emotions like anger, sadness, or embarrassment, they end up creating snowstorms. She says she struggles to control her emotions and ends up causing blizzards without meaning to. While her sister and the rest of her family can manage their powers well, she finds it really hard to control herself and ends up pushing people away by trying not to make friends. Noru explains that she was always alone and started skipping school because of this. But when she entered high school, she realized she needed to change her ways. She tells Shintaro that when she's at home, all she does is read manga or watch anime. Then she started working as a waitress to begin talking with people, but everything got messed up because he saw her changing. Shintaro tells her to stay calm because it's actually his fault for walking into the changing room. But Noru denies this and says it's her fault for letting it bother her so much. She gets emotional and wonders why she always does things like this. Shintaro comforts her and says she's doing really well since she greets customers with a smile. He tells her that even if people want to change, most of them don't actually do anything about it. Shintaro says he finds her amazing and that she's definitely not a lost cause. When Shintaro sees Izumi crying, he apologizes in case he said something insensitive again. Noru reassures him that it's not his fault at all. She explains that this is the first time she's talked to anyone outside her family about being a snow spirit, and his comforting words mean a lot to her. Noru thanks him and then asks if they can be friends because she's never really had any friends before and worries she might not be good at it. Shintaro agrees to be her friend. Izumi then asks if he's sure because she's a snow spirit, but Shintaro assures her it's not a problem and they're friends now. She then asks him to call her by her first name, and if she can call him by his name too. Shintaro agrees to this. Noru becomes happy as she finally found a friend. Shintaro asks her if Yukiana would melt and disappear if they were seen by others. Noru smiles and says no, she won't disappear like that. Suddenly, they both see a white feather floating down and spot Toa flying above them in the sky. Toa is happy to see Shintaro and says it's good that she found him. He responds that there's nothing good about this situation at all. Just then, Satsumi arrives and gets completely shocked to see Toa actually flying through the air. Now with everything completely messed up, Shintaro thinks that apart from living alone, he was just a regular 16-year-old until last weekend. But everything changed after last weekend, and now there's nothing that seems normal to him anymore. Shintaro wonders why all of this is happening to him. Well, life certainly has a funny way of turning ordinary teenagers into supernatural magnets, doesn't it?
Here I am, know it's been a while. I was in denial about my love. Here I stand, I know I walked away. Had to find the person I'd become.